All right, we're here at Mac Rak to introduce you to our Mac Rak Inspection Tool that you can use on your phone somewhere within your warehouse to inspect all elements of your frame and racking system. So you can dial in macrak.com/inspection and find our Mac Rak Inspection Tool. It's available on any browser with any phone. So it's universally compatible. It's easy to take out into any place in your warehouse and inspect your pallet rack system. So you have got access to all sorts of different points where you can inspect columns, anchor plates, struts, beams, and frames. And we're going to go through in detail how this works and how this tool could be indispensable for you as a warehouse manager in managing your warehouse and using it for informal inspections. Now, this tool is not supposed to replace a professional inspection. It's just supposed to help you, aid you in knowing whether you need to call in the professional or not. When things look out of spec according to this, then it's time to give us a call. In fact, you should already be scheduling regular professional inspections based on the level of use of your warehouse. So if you need information about that, feel free to contact us at macrak.com. And we'd be happy to give you more details of how often you should have your warehouse inspected and how we and one of our distributors might be able to come in and professionally inspect your warehouse. But now let's look further at this tool. So we're going to use our slides here to look at the various aspects of how the tool is covered. So the first thing that we're going to cover on the tool is columns. So what you're going to do is you're going to see on your home screen of the app where you have the columns. You just click on that and then it's going to give you deflection side to side, deflection front to back, corner deflection, damage, and corrosion with photos and details that you're going to need to look at on each section. So as you can see here, there's a photo that gives you the deflection side to side that you need to be able to use to inspect, and then you can get the details of how much to look for, how much would be considered out of specification, and time to call in for a repair and time to call in for an inspection. So let's look at the first detail of the first slide that you might encounter on our tool. So this is deflection side to side. So report if you've got any deflection. So what you're going to be looking for is anything side to side deflection greater than 1/2 inch. So we recommend using some sort of straight edge that you know is perfectly straight, something like a level like we have here, a 4-foot construction level. And then you can measure from the straight point to see if there's any deflection. So you can see that there is visually some deflection here as the space grows between here and there. So you just need to put a tape measure on that and to see if it is greater than 1/2 inch. So if there's any question at all, call in a professional, call Mac Rak, and we'd be happy to come in and look at your issues and tell you exactly how it could be repaired or how it could be fixed. So don't go in here with a sledgehammer and try to bend this back into shape. You need to call in a professional, because once this gets deformed, you're gonna have to see compromised materials, not just a bend that needs to be straightened. So let's look at our next slide here. So this is deflection front to back. So again, you're going to need to report any kind of deflection that you see that might have happened from impacts over time. So again, you're looking at an impact that's greater than 1/2 inch, and you use some sort of straight edge like a construction level to be able to tell the difference of what's going on there. Let's look at the next slide. Is corner deflection inward. So this is kind of a ding that happens maybe by the blades of your forklift or something of that manner. So greater than 1 inch is what you're going to want to see. Again, applying some sort of a straight edge to your corner, you're going to bring that in and bring your tape measure in to make sure that it's not more than 1 inch. If it isn't, or if you're in question, give us a call and we'd be happy to help you out in discussing the damage for you. So here's just small damage. Just keep track of any kind of small cuts, tears, dents that you might have. And it's kind of a cumulative effort here as these can lead to a weakening of structure. Maybe this is a deep groove that's been made. So that one's a little bit harder to inspect and understand whether you need to or not. And again, if in doubt, call Mac Rak, and we'd be happy to come in with our professional inspectors to tell you whether you need to repair. The same with corrosion. Corrosion can eat away at the structural integrity of your beams, and you'll need to report that and any kind of damage in your columns. So now let's turn to anchor plates. So how do you navigate that in the app? So you can navigate from one checklist to the next checklist down here at the bottom. So now we're at the anchor plate checklist, and it's going to show you all the different elements of anchor plates that you need to inspect to see if there's a problem. So you can bring this tool out to some portion of your warehouse and inspect the anchor plates by just using this, and diving into greater detail by just clicking on something, and it'll show you a picture and give you instructions as to what you're supposed to look for to tell you whether you should call in the professionals. All right, so let's look at the anchor plates now. What are some aspects of anchor plates that you're going to see on the app? So on the app, you're going to say report any loose bolts or missing anchor bolts. So just inspect these things. These are the type of things that can be sheared off. Each post or upright column of a frame needs to have at least one anchor point or more if that's indicated on your LARC designs provided by your engineer. The load application rack configuration drawings. So if there's a hole that doesn't have an anchor bolt in it, make note of that and talk to your warehouse manager, or if you're the warehouse manager, it's time to make a call to one of the professionals to help you reinstall or inspect what should be done for those anchor bolts, because sometimes even the anchor bolt holes in the concrete can be damaged, and you'll need to use different kind of repairs, which we do have at Mac Rak, which will relocate some of those anchor bolts. So anchor plates are specifically designed for your specific seismic zone. So don't try to go rogue and put your own, what you think might be a good anchor plate on the bottom. You need to consult your LARC plans again and do exactly what is specified there. Or use something like an equivalent repair part from Mac Rak, which has been designed specifically, again, for your seismic zone. So let's look at the next aspect. Plate twist. So you're looking for, sometimes what can happen is the whole column can get twisted by, a forklift getting in there and throwing its weight around, so to speak. And it doesn't necessarily show a dent, it's kind of a twist in the column, and that can show up in the foot plate. So you're looking for, again, missing bolts and twists and turns in the anchor plate itself. You're going to do that by taking a square or a line that you're running down the length of your aisle and seeing if any of your anchor plates are indeed out of square by more than 1/2 inch, which is the standard that you're looking for here. So what you're looking for here is weld shear. So what can happen is if there's a severe enough impact, the column itself does not bend, but it gets knocked off. The welds break. Perhaps there's due to corrosion or some other defect, but it gets knocked loose from the actual foot plate, the anchor plate, and so that's going to need to be replaced as well. So let's look at the next. Damage any small dents or tears. And again, what you're looking for anything that could start to erode the structural integrity of your foot plates. So you need to take note of those things so that a professional inspector can come back and look at those and make a judgment call whether that material's structural integrity has been compromised enough where you might need to replace that or repair it. All right, so the same with corrosion. We're looking for the corrosion that can happen if you're using whatever's happened to your paint or whatever protection material that you have on your anchor plates. It can erode over time, and eventually you might have something where you're going to have compromise of structural integrity. So you're going to need to take care of that as well. So let's look at our next element, struts. So struts need to be examined as well. So here's the first element of strut, deflection side to side. Just like it as a column is, you're going to need to put some sort of straight edge like a construction level. And you're not really looking for the level of this, you're looking for the deflection, okay? So the level is just being used as a straight edge. It's not actually checking for level. So you're looking for something greater than 1/2 inch. So this is usual damage that's done by pallets or done by, could be barrels or anything else that's placed within there, or a actual forklift itself as well. So any kind of structural damage to a strut, you're gonna need to address that with some sort of a repair. Okay, the next is deflection front to back on a strut that is a diagonal strut. So you're looking for a 1/2 inch or more deflection using your straight edge like a construction level to then measure the distance between the strut and the damage. If it's greater than 1/2 inch, you're going to have to make a repair. And here's a tricky one, missing parts. So you might be missing the part altogether. So you need to keep out an eagle eye. If it's been knocked off altogether and never reported, then you're going to have to keep out, look for spots that have welds or bolt marks that are just missing. It obviously it doesn't follow the pattern of the rest of the frames within your warehouse system. So if it doesn't match the other patterns, note that, and that this particular rack is going to need to be repaired, because you don't want to have any open frames, as we call it, because that really affects the overall stability. So your frame is going to be unstable because it was designed to have a horizontal strut at this location, so that when you load your racks, that horizontal stress is not going to be countered and balanced by the strut that is now missing. Do check also for bolts that might be coming loose, as many struts are just bolted in. So if you have any struts or welds that are coming loose, you take note of that and relay that on and call in a professional inspector. So again, small damage, cuts, tears, as metal can also be torn by a powerful blow to it. So these are the type of things that you want to note and pass on to your inspector or your warehouse manager, so that they can come back and make sure that that structural integrity of that particular element, that strut, has not been compromised. Corrosion is the same thing. You're looking for severe corrosion or the beginnings of severe corrosion that could be addressed by new paint or some other technique to repair. Again, your repair expert up at Mac Rak can help you with those kind of remedies. And again, always at the top here, you'll see this button here. It says Ask a Mac Rak Expert. You can click on that, and that's going to take you to another page where a form will appear. And in this form, you'll be able to fill out your name and your position and your contact information, and you'll even be able to take a picture or upload a picture that you've already taken to the inspection tool and send it directly to Mac Rak, and our people can interact with you and answer any questions that you might have. This is a powerful tool that this online inspection tool has. Allow an expert to see what's really going on with your palleting system and address it with you online. All right, let's address beams now. That's the next section that we'll be looking at. Now, beams are your horizontal members that hold the weight in every bay. So they're very critical in making sure that you don't have damage. So what you're looking for here is deflection downwards. So something at some point in time was overloading this particular beam and is causing this beam to have a deflection point. Now, this is a hypothetical horizontal line that you can do with like a taunt line or something like that, or a very long other beam that you know is perfectly straight, and then you can measure the difference between there. And there's actually a formulaic pattern that you can see within the app that shows you how much deflection is too much deflection. So it's deflection over distance that you're going to be trying to calculate. That formula is available in the app. So it's the length of the beam divided by the number 180, and that will result in some sort of a decimal number. Whatever that decimal number is the allowable deflection from the largest point. Other inspection points you want to look at are beam clips. Now, the beam clips are these points of attachment that are so significant for the beams. They're the points of connection that keep the beam connected to your uprights, and those will look different depending on which system you use. There are different types of pins, there are different types of clips, there are standard bolt-on action as well. So you need to look at whatever connection point that you have, that they're meeting the OEM standards of your particular beam style. Now, the other thing to check for are your end plates. You're looking for bends, dents, and any kind of disengagement that you see from the frame. So are there any weld failures? Over time, the stresses and the age of a beam can have it deteriorate over time, and you need to note that. And even if you're concerned, you need to report that to your warehouse manager and or a professional inspector to come and address this particular issue. Now, you're also going to be looking for damage within the beam itself. So instead of a deflection, this is a dent, a large scrape, a tear, or a cut. You're going to be looking for all of those different types of elements, and you're going to need to call in an inspector if you're at all worried about what type of structural damage may have occurred to your beam. You can use the Ask a Professional with a smiling face and expert, Mac Rak Expert, up here at the top. Click on that and send a picture of your damage to Mac Rak, and we will tell you whether we think that needs to be addressed. So this is one of the more tricky things to inspect, is the type of smaller damage that might have mid-beam. So again, you're also looking for corrosion, any loss of paint, anything that you think will severely compromise the structure. Corrosion over time is one of the things that can deteriorate the strength and structure of your beams. So we're looking now at uneven loading. So this affects your beams and is related to your beams. Now you notice that all of these, all the weight is put ununiformly to one side of this particular bay. Okay, so that can cause damage to the rack over time because it's going to put all the stress of this particular frame on one particular side. So you need to follow the instructions, the OEM instructions on how to load your racks more uniformly. So it would mean that you probably would have something here, something there, and probably starting down at the bottom in loading your weight. Oftentimes your warehouse software will guide you in loading in a uniform way, but if you're not using that, or if the software is not working correctly, you need to spot this as a warehouse manager as a potential issue and address it. Now, the other thing you could be looking for is a missing beam. The problem with missing beams is they can torque and distort your overall frame because your particular design was meant to have these horizontals which actually give more structure to your frames overall. So when your frames do not have a beam and all the other beams in your warehouse are at that level, there might be somebody who improvised and took out that beam at some point in time in the past to accommodate some larger product or something like that, but that needs to be addressed. And call in an inspector or consult your OEM or your LARC drawings to be able to ensure that your frame is assembled in the way that conforms to the original engineering design. Okay, let's address frames. Here's something that you need to be addressing, which is plumb side to side. So what you can do here is drop a vertical plumb line using a lift or a ladder, getting up there and dropping a plumb line, and then what you're looking for is dangerous if it's more than the height divided by 240. That's the formula you're looking for. And whatever number that yields, like 1 or 2 or 3 inches, if you're seeing something that's greater than that, then you're going to need to address the plumb of that particular upright. And so you'll need to call in a repair expert to shim and or replace this particular frame. The same is true with the front to back deflection. So if you have deviation more than the height of the frame divided by 240, you're going to need to address that too. So whatever results from this formula, you'll measure that at the bottom. And if that number is greater than the number that results from this formula, then you're going to need to address the front to back plumbness of that particular frame section. Now, this is very important that you address this and get all of your frames in proper plumb. Even if they're a little bit off, I suggest making some adjustments to your frames so that they become almost as perfectly plumb as they can be. It'll only strengthen your whole system. Row spacers. The next item is row spacers. You need to report row spacers when you have fewer than 1 per 10 foot in the horizontal flow of your racking systems. That's the normal standard, but you need to consult your LARC drawings to make sure that you have row spacers that are in the proper spacing according to your original engineered designs. And if you're missing any, they need to be replaced right away because this creates a huge amount of stability between the two rows. The two frame groupings give strength to one another front to back. Splices. These affect your frames if they're done improperly. If there's no backing material between there, or if there's too great a gap, there needs to be, or if there's oftentimes you'll see a slight bend at the joint between these as well. So you need to check for all of these things to make sure that your splices are properly installed. So that's all the different information that you can find on the Mac Rak Inspection app that's available at macrak.com. You can either follow the navigation or you can go to macrak.com/inspect and you'll be taken right to this tool. This is a valuable tool for informal inspections, but RMI and OSHA standards recommend that you have at least a professional inspection once a year, but you might need to inspect even more often if you have higher levels of traffic. So if you do need help with your inspections, you can use this for an informal inspection in between your professional inspections, but go ahead and call macrak.com and we'd be happy to come out and take care of any professional inspections or questions that you have about your racking system. So thanks very much, and we'll talk to you soon.